Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pat's Pulpit pregame show. It is the final week of the New England Patriots preseason. We are getting ready for possibly the most boring game of football of the entire year, but it means a lot to the team and to the players. We have to be respectful of the fact that this is the make or break it week for a lot of these players. There will be over 1,000 different people that have been pursuing their dreams. They will not be able to attain them this year. And those are the ones that are going to be playing this week. With me, as always, is my good friend, Alec Shane. Alec, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, buddy. It's an interesting evening, to say the least. It's the last Thursday in August. Football starts next week, and I want to get excited for it. But first, we kind of got to get through this upcoming game in which pretty much nobody of note will be playing. And a lot of guys will be playing their very last pro football game ever. So it's kind of a surreal evening for a lot of people.
No, it's true. And the Patriots, compared to most teams, they are as set in stone as you can get. I believe that there's roughly 45 players that we already know are absolutely going to be making the team. And there are a lot of players that aren't actually even suiting up tonight. If you follow some of the people on Twitter, I believe it's been Zach Cox and Doug Kyde over at Nesson, they have been mentioning sightings in the press box. They have seen Tony Garcia in there. He's the rookie. They've seen Dietrich Wise, who's the rookie. They've seen Harvey Lange as well. So these are all different players that, they're either going to make the team in the case of Lange, who I assume is healthy, or they're potentially starting the season on the injured reserve, like Tony Garcia. I assume that Wise will also be active to start the season. So if those are the types of players that are not going to be suiting up today, that means that the Patriots will be trotting out players to go out with quarterback Jacoby Brissett, who's expected to start. But these are the players that are roughly they are exactly in the 50 to 90 range on the roster. There's basically just enough for a top line on both sides as well as a special teams unit. And so I thought today what we could do is go through this list that Doug Moore created, and we have it up at our site, patspulpit.com, where he proposes 11 different players and suggests that they need to have big games in order to make the active roster. And I wanted to kick this off with the quarterback that I mentioned already, Jacoby Brissett. Alec, he's going to be playing the entire game. He did not play a single snap in the third week of the preseason, which some have noted is not a good sign for quarterbacks. I believe that a couple years ago, that was how Ryan Mallett ended up being traded, is that he didn't play in the third week. He got moved. That wasn't a good sign for Brissett, in line with where he stands on the team. We've talked in depth about whether or not he's a roster lock. What are you expecting to see from him today?
Yeah, I think what I really want to see from him the most is accuracy. He's been very inaccurate in 2 preseason games so far. He had the chance to lead the Patriots on game-winning drives late in the game, and he basically overthrew it, or he messed up and he got strip sacked, and he's been very inaccurate with his arm. We all know he's strong. We all know he's athletic and he's mobile, but he's not making the best decisions. He's a little slow in his throwing mechanics. His throwing motion is very wide and a little bit awkward. And so I'm hoping he hits guys on lasers. Patriots team, the front office, they love him. They love his work ethic. They drafted him fairly high, so I imagine he's pretty safe at the moment. But as Doug Moore did note, the Patriots are not known to keep 3 quarterbacks that often. But this could be a situation where they decide to keep 3 because Jimmy Garoppolo's in the last year of his contract. But if Brissett comes out and he's overthrowing guys, if he's taking too long in the pocket, if he's getting sacked by the Giants' 3rd and 4th stringers, then that could bode that he's just not really up to speed mentally with the NFL-style offense. So hopefully he'll be accurate and decisive and plays behind the team tonight.
No, I agree. I think that Jacoby Brissett, as you said, he hasn't been accurate the entire preseason. He hasn't really shown that big step in his second season that many would have liked to seen after how he performed against the Houston Texans last year, week 3 of the regular season. He did a pretty good job. And so if Brissett doesn't show any progress, if he does, as you say, come out really flat, he doesn't really perform well, there's actually a very solid chance that he could end up being squeezed onto the practice squad. I think that the Patriots would want to keep him around, but they could value that roster spot a little bit more for someone else. If Brissett does come out and fall on his face, then maybe other teams wouldn't be as willing to claim him on waivers. But ultimately, they would like to keep him within the franchise itself because Brady's age, Garoppolo's a pending free agent, and they would much rather have a quarterback with 3 years in the system next year versus starting from scratch all over again. Next player on Doug Moore's list is running back Brandon Bolden. He has been battling with DJ Foster for the number 5 running back spot. Curiously, Mike Reese suggested that Brandon Bolden might actually be safe to make the team this year due to his special teams contributions and the fact that we've seen some injuries to players like Shea McClellan and some other special teamers. Do you think that Bolden will make the team, and what do we have to see from him today?
It's tough. I think we can talk about Bolden and DJ Foster together because I think one of those two will be safe. I think DJ Foster is look on the outside looking in at the moment because Brandon Bolden does have that special teams value we talked about. As a runner, doesn't really bring that much to the table. He's reliable, but he's not the kind of guy you're gonna pound the rock with every single down or a lot of plays. So he doesn't bring a whole lot to the offense. The only area where I'm maybe a little hesitant to say he's a roster lock is the team's just traded for Marquise Flowers on Tuesday of this week, I believe, and he's a special teams guy. Now that might bode poorly for Shea McClellan's health. He hasn't practiced all season. Reserve. I don't know what's going to happen with him, but if Marquise Flowers is brought in as a special teams guy, that could be the end of Bolden. And I think that Foster actually has more upside than Bolden does as one of those scat backs, as a receiving back. He impressed late in preseason action he's seen so far. Bolden, not so much. So while the ceiling is higher on Foster, Bolden does have the special teams value and he's a proven commodity. But that Flowers acquisition could be the end for him, which is too bad. He's a favorite of mine. I really like the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the favorite of everyone on the team. The coaching staff can't rave enough about him. Tom Brady absolutely adores him. But I'm leaning Team Foster right now just because of how he received the snaps in the second half of week 3. He was getting time ahead of Brandon Bolden. He adds value in the return game. He's not a non-factor on special teams. He does have some of those contributions. He offers upside. The injury to Julian Edelman, and he's a big slot receiver. I don't think that DJ Foster would specifically move into the slot, but he did play slot receiver at Arizona State in his senior year. So he offers that type of versatility. And this will be a 1-for-1 battle, in my opinion. LaShawn Daniels, he's the other running back that's on the roster right now. I don't believe that he has a chance to make the team. Maybe he'll be on the practice squad. I don't know if we'll see that either. But I believe for the entire first half of this game, we're going to see Brandon Bolden and DJ Foster go toe-to-toe. Whoever performs their best today will likely have the inside edge and will ultimately make the team. And as you were saying, I think Foster offers more upside, but I believe Brandon Bolden will find some other team because of his special teams ability and because, to his credit, he's only 26 years old right now. He has so many years of experience, and he does back up both as a runner and as a receiver and as a blocker. He doesn't do any of them exceptionally. He's C grade in all three, but you can do much worse for a number 3, number 4 running back on the roster.
No, it's very true. And he's got not much tread in his tires. He hasn't been used or beaten to the ground that much. So it's a nice combination of experience in a good system with not a lot of body wear. So I do not think he'll be very long on the unemployment list if and when he gets cut, but it'll be sad to see him go for sure.
I agree. And moving on to wide receiver, 2 names that we can talk about are Austin Carr and Devin Lucien. We just had that injury to Julian Edelman where he tore his ACL. And so you look at the Patriots depth chart right now with Brandon Cooks, Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola, Malcolm Mitchell, and technically Matthew Slater. I consider him a special teams player, and I don't really factor him into the math. If the Patriots keep a 5th wide receiver, which one would you keep over Carr or Lucien?
I think at this point, Lucien's best bet is a practice squad stash. He's had a good summer, but these are a real long shot to crack the group. Austin Carr, I do not think will clear waivers and be a practice squad stash. So if the Patriots do decide to cut him, they're probably going to have to let him go. Reminds me a lot of your boy from last year, Camu Grugier-Hill, which I think he was a guy the Patriots wanted to sneak onto the practice squad, but I believe the Eagles ended up scooping him up off waivers. So I think that if they're going to take a gamble on Austin Carr, they're going to lose that gamble. Carr's actually gotten the most snaps of any offensive player through the preseason. So he's had plenty of opportunities to show his stuff. He's performed well. He hasn't blown the doors off by any stretch of the imagination. He's not going to replace Julian Edelman. Everyone who thinks he's going to come in and just fit into the offense is kind of, I don't know what they're on, but it's not going to really work that way. However, I think he's played well enough to either be a Patriot come cut down day or be on another team come cut down day, but it will not be a practice squad stash for him.
No, absolutely. And I think that with Lucien, as you're saying, his best bet will be on the practice squad. It speaks a little bit to the fact that Cody Hollister has actually been playing ahead of him with your talk about your snap counts. I don't know whether that's the coaching staff wanting to see more opportunities for Cody Hollister, who was limited earlier in training camp with a foot injury, or if he has simply just surpassed Devin Lucien. And we've seen Hollister make a pair of big plays in back-to-back weeks. I don't think any of those players will be considered roster locks. And if Austin Carr goes out there and puts together a performance like DJ Foster did in the final week of last preseason, where he had over 100 yards from scrimmage, then we can talk. We can talk about Austin Carr doing it. But putting together consecutive weeks of 30 to 40 receiving yards just isn't going to cut it. And I believe that the Patriots would be comfortable paying him a little bit extra to stay on the practice squad, but he hasn't done enough at this point in time to convince the Patriots that they need to keep him on the active roster.
Yeah, it's true. He'll always have that leaping grab for a touchdown, if nothing else. But that might be where his career starts and stops in New England. Hopefully not. He's a fun guy to watch. You got to root for him, but I think he's on the outside looking in. Another guy on the outside looking in we can talk about moving down this list is Jacob Hollister, the tight end. I know he's been a standout early in the preseason, but he's kind of faded down the stretch in favor of James O'Shaughnessy. Do you think that he's a lock with the roster, or how do you think he's going to fare out?
It's very weird. He came out, he was exceptional, 116 yards in the very first week of the preseason, and he's kind of disappeared since then. He's actually been slowly building up his special teams value over the past 3 weeks, where I believe he had the most special team snaps of the tight ends, a little bit more than James O'Shaughnessy, who, in my opinion, currently has the number 3 spot. Hollister, I don't know why they've kind of just pushed him to the side, because he looks so electric as a receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him more opportunities this week. But overall, big picture, if the Patriots were only to keep 2 tight ends with Rob Gronkowski and Dwayne Allen, and I feel like one of the 3 of Hollister, O'Shaughnessy, and Sam Cotton would make it to the practice squad. Same with Glenn Gronkowski. And so the Patriots treat the practice squad as if it's an extension of the active roster, and maybe they don't feel the need to keep any of them actually on the active squad, because they believe they'll be able to retain them for down the line and save that roster spot for someone else who might not make it through waivers, like a DJ Foster.
No, it's true. And I actually think that Hollister is a practice squad candidate. I don't think he will clear waivers. It's important to keep in mind that when they do a cut down day, every team basically cuts their roster in half. So it's an absolute mass of bodies out there. And I can't imagine how the scouts and the inner squad guys keep track of all that. So I can definitely see Hollister sneaking down to the practice squad. If they keep 2 or they keep 3, I can see Hollister maybe getting a late season call up. If, knocking on wood, Gronk goes down again, he might be the kind of guy that can step in as a blocker, and Dwayne Allen can slide at that number 1 spot. Next guy down on the list is Connor McDermott, the offensive tackle. What are your thoughts on him, Rich?
Yeah, so Connor McDermott's an interesting player. He was the Patriots' 6th round pick. He didn't start out too well at the beginning of camp, just purely due to a numbers game. He was behind Nate Solder and Marcus Cannon with the first team, and then they were also behind Cameron and Fleming and Adrian Waddle of the second team. And so McDermott was lining up with that third team with Cole Croston as well as Tony Garcia when Garcia was healthy. So he was at the very, very bottom of that depth chart. But as this preseason has worn on, Nate Solder, his availability for the start of the regular season is in jeopardy. Maybe he'll miss it. He won't not be on the roster, but maybe he'll miss a week or two just as he continues to deal with whatever injury he's been dealing with. Adrian Waddle had his head injury. Tony Garcia is a likely candidate to start the season on the injured reserve because he has not practiced pretty much the entire preseason. And so we're slowly seeing Connor McDermott rising up the charts purely because of attrition. So he's the 5th offensive tackle in that depth chart, with Nate Solder's role potentially in jeopardy just due to the injury for early on. I wouldn't be surprised if Connor McDermott somehow snuck on to the active roster. I believe he'll play for the entire first half of this game against the Giants, or maybe even into the second half. But he could possibly make that active roster, and maybe he'll be cut in week 2 or week 3 and move to the practice squad, similar to how Chris Harper was moved in 2015. But I wouldn't be surprised if McDermott actually did make this squad as one of the surprise additions.
Yeah, it's possible. They're a little thin in terms of just pure offensive tackle backups. They have their kind of jackknife guy in Ted Karras if they have to. And a guy that isn't on the list that maybe we can talk about very briefly is an offensive lineman, James Ferentz. He's more on the interior of the line, but he could be a kind of practice squad guy as well as a kind of backup to Ted Karras. The only thing that I'm concerned about Connor McDermott is I don't know if he's got really a lot of versatility other than tackle. Can he play guard if he has to? I don't know. I feel like the offensive line, especially Dante Scarnecchia, needs to have a at least working knowledge of other positions along that line in case somebody goes down, so they can move pieces around if necessary. Hopefully that won't be the case. But Nate Solder, as you said, his status is in doubt. No one's sure for sure what's going to happen with him. And I just don't know if Connor McDermott has the versatility to sneak through.
Yeah, and so that's why this game will be important for McDermott. He has mostly been playing as a right tackle during this preseason. Maybe they'll give him an opportunity to line up on that left side just to increase his versatility. He was comfortable doing that in college, so it's not like he can't do it. So maybe that's what the Patriots have in mind. They'll give him one half at one side, the other half at the other side of the line. I think that would be a smart way to use him. Continuing down, defensive lineman Adam Butler. Adam Butler has taken this team by storm. He has been the best undrafted free agent of the lot. I mean, for my money, he's been the best rookie on that team. Better than any of the 4 players that they drafted, better than any of the players that they gave a lot of money to, whether it's Jacob Hollister or Harvey Lange. Butler has been my 5-star rookie this year. He has lined up on the interior, on the edge. He's done everything. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play at all today and that he's done enough. Do you think that he's a roster lock, and what more could he do today against the Giants to solidify a role?
I think at this point he can actually only hurt himself. I feel like he can play himself off the roster with a really bad performance tonight. I think he's done enough to earn a spot on this roster for sure. He was one of the guys you predicted early on in the season, so kudos to you and for calling this guy out. But if he has a really crappy showing today for whatever reason, he might be the kind of guy where they second guess him and decide to cut him late. But basically, as long as he maintains what he's been doing all preseason, he's in.
Yeah, I wonder if he's just staying out there from a numbers perspective, because someone has to line up. If you can't have everyone just as a healthy scratch today, so maybe he'll just be on special teams kicking units, field goal block, and then field goal attempts. Those are the only times he'll be out on the field. But yeah, as you said, he's done enough to earn a spot. Hopefully he doesn't do anything to ruin that. Hopefully he stays healthy, because I think that he could be in line for a serious number of snaps this year, even as a rookie. Moving on, we got a kind of a trio here at linebacker: Landon Roberts, Trevor Bates, Jonathan Freeney. 3 players that have held various levels of praise within the organization. The coaching staff loves all 3 of them just due to their toughness. Specifically with Roberts, they love Jonathan Freeney's attitude and his approach in the locker room. They love Trevor Bates' versatility. All 3 of them have a lot of upside. None of them are roster locks. Of those 3, who do you think makes the team, and what do you need to see from them today?
Yeah, I think of those 3 right now, I think Freeney is the odd man out, which is fine by me. I am very much on anti-team Freeney. I've been on that team for a long time. The coaching staff seem to like him enough, but I don't think he's done enough at all in his brief time in New England to secure his roster spot at this point. I'm not sure what a Landon Roberts injury situation is like. I know the rib injury, he was carted off the field with it. I have not been kept up to date on how he's looking with the ribs, but Trevor Bates has looked good. I think he's been a good addition. I think he's versatile. I think he's a good guy for like the back end of the linebacker roster. He could be a practice squad stash. I think he will clear waivers if it comes to that. But if he has a really solid performance tonight, I do think Landon Roberts is the guy if all things are equal and they're both healthy. I think Landon Roberts has the commitment and the experience in the system. But Trevor Bates made a case for himself, and I think he'll be on the page in some capacity come the fall.
Yeah, the team's addition of Marquise Flowers definitely has affected the stance of Jonathan Freeney within that roster, just because of how Flowers is that special teams linebacker. And if Jonathan Freeney isn't going to be playing too much on the defensive side of the ball, if you had to rate them, Landon Roberts and Trevor Bates are both ahead of Freeney on defense. If Flowers is taking that spot 1-for-1 with Jonathan Freeney, then he should be on that outside looking in. For my money, Landon Roberts is going to win this competition. He's going to go out there, play solidly against these backups of the Giants. He will be that last man on the roster. He could eventually just get moved off just due to injury. He could be that number 53 guy that if someone other position sustains an injury and they need to bump up a player, it could be Roberts that gets that short straw. But of those 3 players, Roberts shows the most upside on defense. I don't believe that he would clear waivers. Trevor Bates has cleared waivers in the past, and he probably would do it again. So if you're just looking at a pure numbers game, Roberts is the one that would, for my money, make the team. Going on to the defensive back position, Cyrus Jones and Jordan Richards, two former Patriots second-round picks. Neither of them have done much on the field in a positive way. Cyrus Jones flashed in week 2 of the preseason against the Houston Texans as a return man. He did a really good job there, but week 1 of the preseason, he was absolutely just embarrassed in coverage. Jordan Richards has had a handful of serious breakdowns in coverage and tackling in open space, but coaching staff, he just won the Community Service Award of this offseason. He contributes on special teams. The Patriots have kept these depth safeties around. We've seen Tavon Wilson stick around for a while just because they offer that depth position. Jordan Richards could very well be a healthy scratch for all 16 games, but he would offer some backup if Daron Harmon, Devin McCourty, Patrick Chung, any of them suffer an injury. Richards could theoretically step up as that third safety in those big nickel packages. Do you think either of them are in jeopardy of losing a roster spot?
Honestly, until Jordan Richards won the Ron Burton Community Service Award, I would have maybe put him in danger of losing his roster spot. But the team has never given that award to a player and then cut him in the history of the franchise, under Belichick at least. So I think he basically made himself a lock with that. They take that kind of thing very seriously in New England. The people that give back their communities, receive those awards, are touted, and that might have been enough to earn him back on. And he does provide value. He definitely is not living up to his draft status as a second-round pick. But I think just because of his ability off the field, and he's not a massive liability on field. He could be a healthy scratch, as you said. I think he's safe. And Chandler Jones, Cyrus Jones, I think if this was a different year, maybe year 3 or year 4, he'd be gone. But it's his second year. They're going to keep the leash long at this point. But nothing he's shown me so far leads me to believe that he's going to be a long-term solution in New England. He could definitely turn it around, and I'm not closing the book on him. But I think at this point, the only thing really keeping him around is the fact that they drafted him high last year and want to give him at least one more year to prove himself.
I agree with that. And another way to look at it is, who are they going to replace him with? The Patriots are going to have to keep 5 cornerbacks on the roster. You got Gilmore, you got Butler, you got Rowe as your 3 locks. I don't see any of those undrafted players that came in this year having done enough. There was no Crevan LeBlanc from last year. There's, now Dower Roberts was a draft pick from an earlier year, but he didn't step up like that. So there wasn't a player that emerged this year that could have pushed him off. I was thinking DJ Killings might possibly do that. Kenny Moore, both of them looked good during training camp and in practices, but they haven't really emerged when the games actually started. For my money, actually, Justin Coleman has looked like the best coverage corner of the Justin Coleman, Jonathan Jones, Cyrus Jones trio that are fighting for those last 2 spots. But Coleman provides the least amount of value on special teams. And if you're looking at cornerbacks number 4 and number 5, then it's mostly special teams that should make the difference. And so I think that Cyrus Jones is going to make the team, and it will be Jonathan Jones versus Justin Coleman for that final spot. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they leaned with Coleman, but with Matthew Slater dealing with his current hamstring injury, he's suited up. I doubt he'll play today, but he looks like he's in uniform and he's healthier and inching back to his return. But with him still dealing with that minor injury, Jonathan Jones as that gunner on the punt unit, he's kind of too important not to keep around. And so that's why I think we'll see the same 5, or we'll see the same cornerbacks of Cyrus Jones and Jonathan Jones making the team as they did last year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's a great list from Doug. I really appreciate that content and stuff like this we can expect all season at Pat's Pulpit, which is awesome. Not a whole lot to be excited about. But again, for some of these guys, this is their Super Bowl in a lot of ways, because if they play well tonight, they can sneak onto a very solid team. And I've always been curious about how when players leave, if players leave the Patriots and they get picked up by like the Browns or like, the Jags, if it really is, it makes them feel really sad, or they just don't care. They want a paycheck,
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that we were talking about players going from 16-0 to 0-16 on our podcast. That's got to be one of the most disheartening opportunities you can have out there. So,
that's true. Yeah.
Although for all of them, I'm sure they would rather make a roster than not. And wherever that takes them, they're chasing their dreams, and you got to really root for all of them to have success out there. They've worked so far for their entire lives to be at this point, rooting for everyone to leave this game healthy. Alec, do you have any final thoughts about this last preseason game between the Patriots and the Giants?
No, I didn't have any to begin with, so I can't have any final thoughts. For the hell of it, I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to say 17-10 Patriots.
Oh, that sounds like a terrible snooze fest. I'm going to go ahead and say Jacoby Brissett's going to have a great game out there. He's going to find Devin Lucien and Austin Carr and Cody Hollister and Jacob Hollister. They're going to do uniform switcheroo. But the Patriots are going to win this one against, they're probably going to face Geno Smith for a considerable amount of time. Patriots win this one 31-17.
Tell you, Rich, I'm very much looking forward to the next time we do this because it'll be an actual game we're talking about. It's about time.
Yeah, and we'll have all content with roster breakdowns, winners and losers on patspulpit.com. And until next time, Alec, you have a good one.
See you, buddy.